Zahara Bell's morning had already taken a turn for the worse. First, her oatmeal got bombed by a pigeon while she was trying to eat on the park bench outside her apartment. Then her eccentric editor at the Metro Pulse Weekly made her rewrite an entire article because, apparently, the commas were emotionally flat. In truth, there was just a smudge on his reading glasses, but nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to what happened next. There she was, walking through Park West Plaza Mall, trying to calm her nerves with a window shopping stroll, when she froze. In her tracks, Malik Jordan, her ex-boyfriend, the same man who just 3 months ago had broken up with her while quoting some ridiculous anti-love manifesto, was standing in Cyrus Jewelers, sliding an engagement ring onto the finger of a woman who looked like she'd been printed from a high-gloss magazine. "Oh no," Zahara whispered, ducking behind a display of designer scarves. Too late. Malik spotted her. For a brief second, Zahara felt like she left her body. The humiliation was so sharp it could have sliced glass. She peeked out from the display just in time to hear Malik say, "Do you like this one, baby?" "I love it," the woman giggled, flashing a rock on her finger big enough to get satellite reception. "I can't wait to be Mrs. Jordan." Zahara stumbled backward. Her ex, the guy who said marriage is a capitalist trap, now suddenly believed in forever. And then came the worst part. Malik locked eyes with her, that same smug grin crawling across his face. The one that said, "I moved on first." Great. She squared her shoulders and forced a fake smile. "Malik," she said with the kind of overly sweet tone people use when talking to mosquitoes. Wow, what an unexpected and totally not awkward surprise. "You still live around here?" he asked, raising a brow like she was a relic from the past. "And you still breathe?" She snapped back, arms folding across her chest. The woman, Zahara recognized her now. Chantel Green, a socialite/lifestyle blogger, let out a fake little laugh and latched onto Malik's arm. "Wow, Zahara, you look exactly the same," she said with sugary sarcasm. "It's like time hasn't moved for you at all." Zahara's jaw clenched. "And you look more plastic. What happened? Your Instagram filter start working in real life." Chantel's lips twitched. In annoyance, Malik tried to cut the tension. "So, you seeing anyone?" Zahara froze. What? Was this him trying to confirm that she was still stuck on him? That she spent her nights crying into her blanket while playing sad love songs? Chantel leaned in with a grin. "Still single? Huh. Don't worry. Some people find love after 40. That did it." Before Zahara could respond, she felt a strong arm slip around her shoulders, and a smooth, low voice whispered in her ear, "Hey, sweetheart." Zahara's whole body stiffened. She turned her head and found herself face to face with a stunning black man in a dark tailored coat, his eyes calm and serious, lips curved in a slight smile. "I'm sorry I'm late, baby," he said. "Have you been waiting long?" Without giving her brain time to catch up, Zahara acted on pure instinct. She spun around and kissed him. It was reckless. It was wild. It was survival. But the craziest part? He kissed her back, not awkwardly. Not like some confused stranger, but with the kind of smooth assurance that said, "I've got you." Chantel gasped. Malik's jaw clenched. Mission accomplished. Zahara pulled away and turned back to them with the smuggest smile she could manage. "Sorry, what were you asking again?" Malik's expression looked like he'd just swallowed a cactus. Before anyone could say another word, the man beside her casually took her hand and added, "Shall we?" "Go, darling. We've still got to pick out that wedding ring." Zahara nearly choked. Wedding ring. But before she could say a word, he was already leading her out of the store, and she followed. That's when it hit her. She had just kissed a total stranger. Correction. Not just any stranger. She had kissed Langston Reed, the reclusive, influential, and incredibly private black tech millionaire whose face was always on the front of Black Legacy magazine. And somehow, he seemed to be enjoying himself. Zahara had made some questionable choices in her life, Like dyeing her hair turquoise in college or texting Malik, "I still believe in us," after 3 glasses of boxed wine. But kissing a total stranger in the middle of a luxury mall? That was a new level. And now that stranger, Langston Reed, one of the most powerful and wealthiest men in the entire city, was casually pulling her through Park West Plaza, as if they'd been dating for years. Zahara tried to ignore the stares. Of course people were staring. Langston was tall, striking, and walked like he owned the earth. Meanwhile, she was in a wrinkled, "Stay Angry, Unicorns" t-shirt and discount sneakers. People probably thought she was part of a contest giveaway. Win a day with a billionaire. She planted her feet. "Hold up, what just happened?" Langston turned to her, amused. "Apparently, you kissed me." "And you kissed me back, of course. Would have been rude not to." Zahara blinked. "You say that like it was a toast at a wedding." "Wasn't it?" he replied with a smirk. "No," Langston chuckled. "Then clearly we need to work on our performance." Zahara's nerves were shot. "Who are you?" He raised an eyebrow. "You really don't know?" "Should I?" "This is amazing," he said, more to himself than her. "You actually don't know who I am." "This is terrifying," she muttered. He waved a hand. "No need to thank me for the rescue." "Rescue? I didn't ask for a hero. Your ex was treating you like a dusty old coat. Did you really want me to just stand there?" She opened her mouth to argue, but ugh. He had a point. "Look," she said, rubbing her forehead. "Thank you for saving my dignity. But now, can we move on with our lives?" Langston tilted his head. "Not even a thank you dinner." She squinted. "What? You owe me dinner." Zahara barked a laugh. "I owe you? I'm the one who impulsively kissed you to avoid emotional catastrophe. Let's call it a compensatory impulse," he said. "And what if I say no?" He shrugged. "Then I'd tell your ex we're madly in love." Zahara almost choked. "You wouldn't. Try me." She narrowed her eyes, trying to come up with a way out. There wasn't one. "Fine. One dinner. That's it." Langston grinned. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 8. She pointed at him. "If this turns out to be some billionaire cult ritual, I'm calling my auntie and 3 deacons." "You'll survive," he said with a wink. Zahara wasn't so sure. Later that night, staring at herself in the mirror, Zahara muttered, "What am I doing?" She was about to have dinner with a man she didn't know. Except now she did know who he was. Langston Reed, CEO of Canava Tech. Forbes cover. Mysterious. Unattainable. Untouchable. And she'd kissed him. This wasn't a date. This was emotional. Whiplash. But she had said yes, and Zahara Bell didn't go back on her word, unless it involved karaoke. So she grabbed her purse and headed out to meet him. The restaurant was one of those places that made you want to walk on your tiptoes. The kind where the chandeliers probably cost more than your degree. Langston was already seated at their table when she arrived. The host looked at her like she was a misplaced coat hanger. "If I need a kidney to pay for this meal, I'm billing you," she whispered to Langston. "I've got it covered," he said, smirking. "In that case, I'll take the gold-plated lobster with a diamond-glazed side salad." He chuckled. They sat down, and Zahara tried not to notice how comfortable he looked, how calm, how expensive. "So, Zahara," he said, folding his hands on the table, "tell me about yourself." She frowned. "Why?" "Because I like knowing who I'm eating with. I pay rent. I survive. And sometimes I kiss strangers to sabotage my ex's ego." Langston smiled. "Is that a natural skill or self-taught?" "Unfortunately, no masterclass yet." "Shame I'd enroll," she rolled her eyes. "What about you? Besides being irritatingly rich, what's your thing?" "I use situations to my advantage." Zahara snorted. "Wow, shocking. And yet, here you are, dining with me." She looked into her wine glass. "That's only because you blackmailed me." Langston laughed. And though she didn't want to admit it, she was actually enjoying herself. Then he dropped the bomb. I have a proposal. Zahara narrowed her eyes. If it's illegal, I'm out. Stay with me. For 1 month. She choked. What? Pretend to be my girlfriend. She stared. Why? Langston swirled his wine glass. Let's just say, some people need to believe I've settled down. And I'm your first pick because I panicked and kissed you in a mall? He raised an eyebrow. No one's ever kissed me without knowing who I am. She blinked. That was a mistake. A great mistake. She leaned back in her chair. You still haven't said what's in it for me. Whatever you want. She looked at him. Anything? Anything. Zahara bit her lip. The idea was ludicrous, ridiculous, insane. And yet, it was also kind of tempting. She took a long breath. Let me get this straight. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend for 1 month, and in return I can ask for whatever I want? Exactly. Why not hire a model? An actress? Langston glanced at her unicorn t-shirt and grinned. They wouldn't have kissed me with a glittery unicorn on their chest. Zahara rolled her eyes. So what now? He leaned forward. We draw up the terms. She laughed. Oh, now it's a business deal? With benefits for both of us. Zahara studied him. She should say no. But her curiosity got the better of her. All right, I'm in, she said slowly. But I have one condition. Langston's eyes sparkled. Name it. You help me get a better job. He blinked. You want employment? I'm tired of writing articles about recycled napkins. If I'm playing girlfriend, I want something that'll actually help my life. He extended his hand across the table. Deal. She hesitated, then shook it. Welcome to my world, Zahara. The next morning, Zahara's phone buzzed at exactly 5:47 a.m. Langston Reed. I'll pick you up at 10. Wear something comfortable. Zahara stared at the message. Comfortable? That could mean yoga or a jump out of a plane. And knowing Langston, it probably leaned toward emotional sabotage with a tuxedo on top. At precisely 10:00 a.m., a black luxury SUV that looked like it came out of a futuristic dream pulled up in front of her apartment building. Zahara stepped outside in jeans and a hoodie, squinting as Langston stepped out in a crisp shirt, sunglasses, and a watch that probably had its own security system. She looked at the car, then at him. Really? This ain't a little excessive? Nothing's excessive when you have taste, he said, opening the door for her. Zahara slid into the leather seat and crossed her arms. Where are we going? You'll see. I hate surprises. Good. That makes them more fun. 15 minutes later, Zahara found herself standing inside a high-end boutique in downtown Atlanta. Maison Estelle, the kind of place where security guards wore suits and you couldn't tell whether the walls were decorated or just casually made of marble. She stopped in the middle of the store and slowly turned to him. Langston, what are we doing? Here? He smiled. If you're going to be my girlfriend, you need to dress like you belong in my world. Zahara gawked. So what? My unicorn shirt's not doing it for you? It's a symbol of personality, he said with a nod. But even unicorns need vacation. She glared but followed him inside anyway. In under 10 minutes, she was surrounded by racks of silk, sequins, and gowns with price tags that made her feel allergic. A stylish older woman, Diane, the boutique manager, was already picking out looks like she was prepping a red carpet debut. Trying on the dresses was like falling into a parallel universe. 1 minute she was Zahara Bell, the girl who lived on instant ramen and wore scuffed sneakers. The next, she was strutting out of the dressing room in a satin emerald gown, while Langston watched with a tilted head and an unreadable expression. She paused, hands on her hips. Too much? Langston stood, walked over, and adjusted the shoulder strap gently. It's perfect. For a second, Zahara forgot to breathe. He looked at her like she wasn't just playing pretend anymore. She quickly turned away. 20 minutes. Later, dressed in a tailored black evening gown with subtle gold accents, Zahara stepped into Langston's car as he opened the door again. This really feels like a soap opera, she muttered. Poor girl gets caught in a billionaire's game. He glanced over as he drove. Don't worry, you're playing your role perfectly. I'm just trying not to pass out in this dress. Langston smirked. You'll be fine. Smile, wave, and if things get weird, don't run. That's my only rule. They arrived at the event, a high society charity gala hosted at the Regal Crest Ballroom. The moment Langston stepped out of the car, camera flashes exploded. Zahara froze. Dozens of photographers and onlookers stared as if Beyoncé had just arrived with a mystery woman. Langston held out his hand. Ready? No, she said honestly, but she took his hand anyway. They walked the red carpet, and Zahara did exactly as he coached. Smile, wave, don't freeze. Langston whispered little comments in her ear, some just teasing, others meant to make her laugh. And it worked. Her nerves began to melt, until she saw her, Clarissa Vaughn. Langston's ex-girlfriend, heiress to a cosmetics empire, and someone who made confidence look like a weapon. She approached in a shimmering champagne gown that hugged her frame like liquid elegance. Langston, she said with a practiced smile, eyes fixed on Zahara. This is new. Langston returned the smile with grace. Clarissa, this is Zahara, my girlfriend. Zahara extended her hand. Nice to meet you. Clarissa took her hand briefly, then examined her like a sculpture she wasn't sure belonged in the gallery. You're different, she said with a sweet, sharp smile. Zahara returned it. Langston needed a change. He was collecting too many antiques. Clarissa blinked. Langston coughed, obviously holding back laughter. Clarissa's smile thinned. Well, not everyone is built for this world, Zahara shrugged. Guess I'll find out. I've always liked proving people wrong. Clarissa's expression flickered for a moment before she turned back to Langston. I hope she knows what she's getting into. I think she'll be just fine, he said, wrapping his arm around Zahara's waist. She's full of surprises. Clarissa walked away. Zahara finally exhaled. I don't like her, she muttered. You're not supposed to, Langston replied. They moved through the ballroom, shaking hands with powerful business people and enduring conversations about hedge funds, luxury islands, and fashion weeks. Then, as if fate just wanted to keep messing with her, Malik Zahara nearly dropped her champagne flute. There he was, arm in arm with Chantel, looking as shocked to see her in that ballroom as she'd been to see him in the jewelry store. Zahara? He said, eyes wide. Langston, with perfect timing, slipped his arm around her again. She's with me, he said firmly, calmly, but with a tinge of triumph. Chantel blinked. Wait, y'all are together? For a while now, Zahara said, schooling her face into a nonchalant smile. Malik opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Langston gave a polite nod. We'd love to stay and chat, but we've got people to meet. As they walked away, Zahara muttered under her breath. I can't believe he was here. Langston whispered back, and I can't believe you shut him down like that. Nicely done. Zahara allowed herself a little grin. The night was far from over. But for now, she'd survived her first public test, and somehow, she wasn't just playing the part anymore. She was starting to enjoy it. The gala buzzed with lights, clinking glasses, and conversations Zahara barely understood. Talks about mergers, gallery launches, and global ventures. She kept smiling, nodding, pretending she was used to all this. Truth be told, she still felt like a guest star on someone else's life show. And then came her. A tall woman in a wine-colored velvet dress glided across the ballroom floor like she owned the carpet. Her eyes zeroed in on Langston with a knowing smile. Zahara immediately clocked her energy. Olivia Monroe. Another ex-Langston's jaw clenched just slightly. Olivia. Langston, she purred, completely ignoring Zahara. It's been a while. Not long enough, Zahara muttered under her breath. Olivia turned, her gaze landing on Zahara for the first time. And who's this? Langston placed a hand gently on Zahara's back. This is Zahara, my girlfriend. There was a flicker, of disbelief in Olivia's eyes, but she was too well trained to let it show. Girlfriend? She echoed. That's unexpected. Zahara smiled tightly. Love has a way of catching you off guard. Olivia's lips curved. Langston's never been one for surprises. He likes his life neat, orderly, predictable. Zahara tilted her head. Funny. I've found him to be full of unpredictability lately. It's kind of charming. Langston almost choked on his champagne. Olivia smirked. Well, I hope you're ready for this world, Zahara. It's not as soft as it looks. Good, Zahara replied coolly. Neither am I. There was a silence. Then Olivia gave a shallow laugh, placed a light kiss on Langston's cheek, and drifted away. Zahara let out a slow breath. Please tell me there aren't more exes hiding behind columns. Langston smirked. She's the last one who still likes making an entrance. Next time, warn me if I need to bring emotional armor. You handled her perfectly, he said. Better than most people I've dated. Zahara raised an eyebrow. Wait, how many fake girlfriends have you had? Langston laughed. None. That's what makes this so fun. She rolled her eyes, but despite herself, she smiled. The night moved on in a swirl of glamour and tension. Zahara found herself chatting with people she'd only seen in magazines. She was adapting faster than she thought, but not without bumps. Halfway through the night, she went to grab a drink when a familiar voice hit her like cold water. Wow. You've got guts. Zahara turned. Samantha, Chantel's best friend, and professional shade thrower, stood before her, arms crossed and eyebrows raised. I beg your pardon, Zahara said, cool and calm. Samantha laughed without warmth. You really think you're fooling anyone? Zahara took a slow sip of her drink. Fooling them about what exactly? That you belong here. That you're actually with Langston. Zahara arched a brow. Sounds like someone's jealous. Please, Samantha scoffed. You were just a girl with discount shoes and frizzy edges last month. Now you're here acting like you run with CEOs. And you were always a background character. Guess? Some things never change. Samantha's mouth twitched, but before she could deliver a comeback, Langston appeared beside Zahara like a perfectly timed security detail. Everything okay here? He asked calmly, slipping his hand around Zahara's waist. Samantha plastered on a fake smile. Of course. Just complimenting your new choice. Langston returned the smile. Zahara always surprises me. That's why I like her. Zahara blinked, surprised by how natural it sounded. Like he meant it. Samantha's face tightened. Well, enjoy the evening, she said before storming off. Zahara turned to Langston. You did that on purpose. He looked innocent. Did what? You saw I needed backup. Call it strategic timing. She rolled her eyes. You love playing games, don't you? Langston smirked. Only when the prize is worth it. Zahara didn't know if that was a compliment or a warning, but her heart was thudding louder than any music in that ballroom. As the night ended and they made their way to the car, Zahara found herself staring out the window, watching city lights blur past, I think, she said softly. I'm starting to get used to this. Langston glanced at her. You think that's a good thing? I'm not sure yet. They rode the rest of the way in silence. But something was shifting. Neither of them said it, but the line between fake and real, it was already beginning to blur. Zahara thought she was adapting to Langston's world pretty well, until he casually dropped a bomb over breakfast the next morning. We have dinner with my family tonight, he said while flipping through financial reports like he'd just told her they were out of milk. Zahara froze mid-sip of her coffee. Come again? Dinner tonight, my parents want to meet you. She blinked. You forgot to mention that when I signed up for your fake girlfriend internship. It wasn't in the contract, he admitted with a shrug. But it's part of the plan. She slammed her mug down. Langston, I barely survived Olivia. Your family is a whole legacy. You'll be fine, he said without looking up. Just improvise. I'm not you. You were raised around wine cellars and tuxedo etiquette. I grew up learning which cornbread didn't come from a box. Langston finally looked up from his papers, offering a calm smile. Just follow my lead. She folded her arms. Are you sure about this? Absolutely, Zahara muttered under her breath as she stormed to her room to change. This is gonna be a disaster. That evening, when Zahara stepped into the foyer of the Reed family estate, her first thought was, I should have worn body armor. The place was massive, all high ceilings, glass chandeliers, and the kind of silence that made you afraid to cough. Too loud. Langston's mother, Dr. Nadine Reed, a stunning, elegant woman in a soft olive dress, was the first to approach. Nicholas, she greeted, kissing Langston on the cheek before turning to Zahara. So, you're Zahara. The mystery, girl we've heard nothing about. Zahara laughed nervously. I like to keep things interesting. Well, it's a pleasure, dear. We were beginning to think Langston planned on staying single forever. Zahara smiled. Then I guess I came just in time. Langston slipped his hand around her waist, smiling as if they were the happiest couple in the world. Exactly. Doctor, Nadine beamed. Come, let's eat. They sat down at a long, immaculate table set with silverware Zahara didn't even know existed. As the conversation began, she did her best to remember their fake backstory, how they'd met at a bookstore, bonded over a shared love of Baldwin, and how Langston had pursued her for weeks before she finally agreed to one date. Dr. Nadine nodded approvingly through most of it, clearly enjoying the idea of her son finally settling down. Then the doors opened, and in walked Reverend Elijah Reed, Langston's father. Tall, stoic, and dressed in a charcoal gray suit, he looked like someone who gave TED Talks just by breathing. The moment he laid eyes on Zahara, his expression didn't shift an inch. This is Zahara, he said, voice low but direct. Yes, sir, Langston said evenly. My girlfriend. Reverend Elijah walked slowly to his seat at the head of the table, eyes never leaving Zahara. Interesting, you've always avoided serious relationships and now you show up with someone you met at a bookstore? Zahara felt her pulse spike. She sat up straighter. Love's funny like that, she said with a smile. It never waits for a schedule. Dr. Nadine chuckled, clearly pleased. But the Reverend just stared a moment longer. And what were you reading when you met? He asked. Zahara opened her mouth, but Langston spoke first. James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time. We both reached for the last copy. Zahara picked up the thread. He tried to say he saw it first, but I wasn't. Letting go. Langston nodded. So we made a deal. Coffee and a debate. Winner got the book. And who won? Dr. Nadine asked, amused. I did, Zahara said quickly. Langston raised an eyebrow. I let her win. You wish, Zahara shot back. The whole table laughed. Even the Reverend allowed a tiny smile to flicker at the edge of his lips before he returned to slicing his salmon. The rest of the meal was smoother. Talk of careers, travel, and family traditions. Zahara found herself opening up more than she expected. Dr. Nadine seemed to genuinely like her. Reverend Elijah remained skeptical, but he didn't press too hard again. When dinner ended and they walked out into the massive foyer, Zahara finally exhaled. I thought I was going to faint in there, she whispered. Langston chuckled. You did great. Your dad almost reduced me to atoms with just a look. He does that to everybody. She narrowed her eyes. You sure he believed it? Langston hesitated. Not completely, but we're holding steady. Zahara sighed. So now what? We just keep this whole game going until, what, they throw us a family reunion? Langston looked at her, expression unreadable. You think this is still just a game? That question lingered longer than she expected, because in her heart, she wasn't sure of the answer anymore. The next morning, Zahara woke to her phone buzzing nonstop like it owed her rent. At first, she ignored it. After all, it was probably just her bank reminding her that her balance still looked like a bad joke. But when the buzzing didn't stop, she finally grabbed the phone, blinked blearily at the screen, and sat straight up in bed. Messages. 3 missed calls. 1 subject line that made her choke on air. Zahara Bell, the woman who stole Langston. Reed's heart? What in the name of Michelle Obama? She muttered. She clicked the link. There she was, on the homepage of Black Elite Weekly, arm in arm with Langston from last night's dinner. She was mid-laugh, eyes glowing, hair catching the soft light. The headline was brutal. Langston Reed officially taken. Who is the mystery woman by his side? Zahara dropped her phone like it burned her fingers. Oh, no. This wasn't part of the agreement. The phone immediately rang again. She picked it up, already knowing who it was. Langston, tell me you didn't see. I saw, he said, sounding too calm. Morning to you too. There are blogs with my name on them. Gossip pages are tagging me. Some magazine just asked for an interview. I'm not built for this. Relax, he said smoothly. The media eats stories like this for breakfast. It'll pass. I'm not a viral tweet. I'm a human being, she snapped, pacing the room. People from my old college are texting me. My cousin just sent me a meme of myself with the caption from Broke to Billionaire's Boo. Langston, I'm dying. You're trending, he said, amusement thick in his voice. That's different. Zahara groaned. You're enjoying this. I'm enjoying you panicking. She rubbed her temples. You said this would stay under the radar. I said it might stay under the radar. The moment we stepped into that gala, the game changed. And what now? You expect me to pose for Essence with a fake engagement ring? No. But a little media reinforcement wouldn't hurt. Zahara paused. Langston. We're having lunch today. In public. Somewhere scenic. Paparazzi will happen. To be there. She almost screamed. You're staging photo ops now? Consider it PR. Plus, we still need to convince my dad. Zahara groaned again. You're gonna be the death of me. I'll pick you up at noon. And Zahara? What? Wear something that makes you feel powerful. At 11:59 a.m., Zahara stepped outside in wide-leg cream pants and a rust-colored blouse that hugged her curves perfectly. She'd pulled her curls into a slick updo and added gold hoops for drama. When Langston pulled up in a classic black convertible, his mouth twitched at the corners. You really don't look like a woman who panicked 2 hours ago. Zahara climbed in, adjusting her sunglasses. Fake it till you make it. They arrived, at a boutique restaurant with an open-air terrace that overlooked the city. Of course, 2 tables over sat a small group of photographers pretending to sip iced tea while their cameras peeked from tote bags. This feels like a trap, Zahara said through her teeth. Langston pulled her chair out like a gentleman. You walked into it willingly. Once seated, they ordered, Langston choosing something with truffle foam, Zahara opting for fried catfish sliders because she refused to let rich food rob her joy. As they waited, he leaned forward slightly. Smile at me like I just told you. I bought you a car. Zahara raised a brow but smirked anyway. Now lean back, he said softly. Laugh like I just whispered something wild. She gave a practiced laugh, but before she could say anything sarcastic, he leaned in and whispered, You're doing better than any actress could. That one? That wasn't fake. The laugh that followed was real. After lunch, they strolled through the nearby park, hand in hand, paparazzi still trailing them at a discreet distance. Zahara tried to keep calm, but when she caught Langston glancing at her with something soft in his eyes, her stomach flipped. You're really good at this, he said quietly. I'm a spectacular liar, she replied with a shrug. He smiled. Or maybe you're not pretending anymore. Before she could respond, a voice behind them stopped her cold. Well, isn't this interesting? Zahara turned around, and there he was, Malik. Standing on the walking trail, arms crossed, eyes narrowed like she'd just borrowed his dreams without asking. I thought it was weird seeing you with Langston Reed online, he said. But seeing it in person? Zahara squared her shoulders. What do you want, Malik? Just surprised, that's all. 1 minute you're dodging rent. Next minute, you're starring in a black love novella. Langston stood quietly beside her, watching, calculating. I don't owe you any explanations, Zahara said. Especially not after you embarrassed me like I was a mistake. Malik's jaw tightened. I just hope he knows what he's getting into. Langston finally stepped forward, his voice calm but sharp. I know exactly what I have. Malik looked between the two of them, then shook his head and walked away, clearly defeated. Zahara exhaled slowly. Langston leaned in. You okay? She nodded. Yeah. Just tired of ghosts popping up like bad Wi-Fi. You handled it well. She gave him a tired smile. I'm getting good at this whole fake life thing. Langston tilted his head. You sure it's all fake? Zahara didn't answer, because for the first time, she wasn't sure either. Zahara couldn't tell when exactly things started to shift. Maybe it was during the family dinner, when Langston stood a little closer than necessary. Or maybe it was that moment in the park, when she laughed for the cameras and caught him smiling at her like it meant something. But now, sitting across from him at a quiet downtown cafe, staring at another gossip headline about the most powerful black couple in Atlanta, Zahara realized what was really bothering her. It didn't feel fake anymore. Langston set down 2 coffees, one for him, one with oat milk, and a double shot for her, just the way she liked it. You're staring at that phone like it owes you money, he said, settling into the seat across from her. Zahara blinked. Sorry, it's just, all of this still feels unreal. You've said that every day for the past week, and it hasn't gotten any less true. Langston leaned back, watching her. You're handling it way better than I expected, she gave him a small smile. You thought I'd have a breakdown? Honestly, I thought you'd run after the first gala. Zahara sighed and rested her chin in her palm. If I knew that one kiss would lead to all this, I would have taken a left turn and hidden behind a mannequin, Langston chuckled. It wouldn't have been as fun. She rolled her eyes. What now? What's the next step in your master plan? Langston went quiet. His fingers traced the rim of his coffee cup. Then he looked up, serious. I want you to stay with me. Zahara blinked. The contract's not over yet. I'm not talking about the contract. She stared at him, the air suddenly heavier. What do you mean? My father still isn't convinced. He wants something more concrete. Zahara narrowed her eyes. Like what? Langston hesitated, then said it. I want you to move in. She almost dropped her coffee. Move in? Just temporarily. A couple weeks. It'll show commitment, realness. You'll have your own space, your own room. It's just for show. Zahara placed her cup down slowly. You want me to live with you, to play house in front of your billionaire family. Exactly. You've officially lost your mind. Langston smiled faintly. Probably. She stood and paced by the window, running a hand over her forehead. Langston, this is next level. Living together isn't casual. It's complicated. People catch feelings. Lines get blurry. He stood too, calm as ever. Do you want the plan to work or not? She turned to face him. What if I'm not sure anymore? He tilted his head. What's stopping you? Zahara opened her mouth, and nothing came out, because honestly, she didn't have a real reason, just fear, that this might get too real. That it already was real. Langston stepped closer, voice lower. You don't have to pretend with me. She searched his face, trying to figure out if this was still a performance. Or something else. Finally, she exhaled. I need time to think. He nodded. Take it. But don't take too long. My father's already planning another spontaneous visit. She groaned. I swear this contract is cursed. Langston lifted his coffee and mock toast. To our shared doom. Zahara rolled her eyes but tapped her cup against his. To whatever this is. Over the next 2 days, Zahara tried to ignore the question circling her brain. Was she ready to live under the same roof with Langston Reed? She knew herself. When she got too close to people, she fell. Hard. And she could already feel the walls she'd built cracking. So when Langston invited her to dinner at his place, she told herself it was just to talk, nothing more. But the moment she walked in and saw him in that open-collar shirt, standing by the kitchen island with a bottle of wine in one hand and 2 glasses in the other, she knew this wasn't just dinner. "You look tense," he said as he poured her a glass. "I look tense because I am tense," she replied. "This feels like a setup." "It is. A soft one." She took the wine and sipped. "Have you ever had a roommate before?" "Once, in college. He snored. I moved out." "So you're saying I have a shot?" Langston chuckled, then turned serious. "Have you decided?" Zahara looked at him, at the way he leaned casually against the counter like this was just a normal Thursday night. "I'll do it," she said softly. "I'll move in." His brow lifted. "No emotional blackmail needed?" "Nope. But if I find out this is some kind of secret billionaire initiation ritual, I'm calling my Aunt Rhonda." He laughed. "Fair enough." That weekend, Zahara packed her things and officially moved into Langston's penthouse condo. The space was sleek, modern, and intimidatingly spotless. His closet looked like it had been arranged by color, mood, and scent. The bathroom had more buttons than her car. On her first morning, she shuffled into the kitchen in a baggy sweatshirt, satin bonnet, and bunny slippers. Langston looked up from his espresso machine and stared. "I knew you had a laid-back vibe," he said. "But this is majestic." Zahara grabbed toast and sat down. "I woke up. I'm vertical. This is a win." He smiled and sat across from her. "Welcome home." She gave him a mock glare. "If I find a printed schedule on the fridge, I'm burning it." "No schedule. Just a few guidelines." Oh, Lord. Despite the awkward start, they began to fall into a rhythm. Zahara still left her socks in random places. Langston still alphabetized his coffee pods, but somehow it worked. The biggest challenge wasn't the pretending, it was the moments in between. Like when he adjusted the strap of her dress before an event, his fingers lingering longer than they should have, or when she caught him staring at her when he thought she wasn't looking, or when she laughed too loud at his jokes not because she had to but because she wanted to. She was supposed to be acting. But the problem was, she wasn't sure she was pretending anymore. Living with Langston Reed was starting to feel dangerously natural. Zahara had told herself, repeatedly, that this was a temporary arrangement, a strategy, a game with a clear ending. But then came the night he gave her the necklace. They were getting ready for a charity gala. Zahara was finishing her makeup in the hallway mirror when she heard his voice behind her. "Zahara." She turned and found him holding a small velvet box. His expression wasn't smug. It wasn't playful. It was, uncertain. "What's that?" she asked, wiping her hands on a towel. Langston stepped forward and opened the box. Inside was a delicate gold chain with a small pendant shaped like a crescent moon. "I thought it would go well with your dress," he said simply. Zahara's throat tightened. This wasn't part of the plan. "I know. Then why are you giving it to me?" Langston paused. "Because I wanted to." She looked at the necklace again, and then at him. He wasn't playing anymore. And that scared her more than any red carpet or fake headline ever could. The event that night was a blur of smiles, compliments, and curious stares. Zahara moved through the room like she belonged there, Langston always by her side. He held her hand without hesitation. He laughed when she teased him. He adjusted her necklace when it shifted slightly, his fingers gentle against her collarbone. But what shook Zahara the most was that none of it felt like an act. Not anymore. By the time they returned home, she was exhausted, not from the heels or the spotlight, but from the emotional weight sitting heavy on her chest. She kicked off her shoes, collapsed on the couch, and sighed. "I never want to wear heels again." Langston sat beside her. "You were incredible tonight. You always say that. Because it's true." She turned to him. "Langston, this is still just a contract, right?" He looked at her. "Quiet, right?" She repeated, voice lower now. He gave a faint nod. Yes, but his eyes said otherwise. Zahara forced a smile, then stood quickly. Good night. Zahara. Not tonight. She disappeared into the guest room, closing the door before her heart betrayed her completely. Because if she stayed 1 second longer, she knew she wouldn't be able to pretend it was fake. And that was the most dangerous part of all. She didn't sleep. All night, she tossed and turned, haunted by memories that had no right to matter. His laugh, his touch, his voice whispering her name just before a room full of cameras snapped. The next morning, she found him in the kitchen already dressed, sipping coffee like everything was fine. It wasn't. She took a deep breath. We need to talk. Langston raised an eyebrow and set his mug down. That sounds serious. It is. She folded her arms. The contract ends soon. He nodded slowly. Yeah. And after that, we go back to our lives. I go back to my apartment. You go back to your penthouse, your schedule, your perfectly stacked coffee pods. Langston tilted his head. Is that what you want? Zahara paused. That was the question she'd been running from since day one. Was it what she wanted? To leave? To pretend this never mattered? Because the thought of walking away made her chest ache. But wanting to stay? That was too risky. She forced a smile. That's the deal, right? Langston looked at her, eyes unreadable. If you say so. The days that followed felt like slow unraveling. They still went to events. Still smiled. For cameras. Still played the perfect couple. But behind the closed doors of Langston's home, things were quieter. Tense, like they both knew something was ending, and neither of them knew how to stop it. The night before the contract expired, Langston stood, across from her in the living room. You packing your things? He asked. Almost done, she said, trying to sound nonchalant. He nodded once. All right. Zahara waited, hoped, but he said nothing else. So she smiled, fake and hollow, and turned to leave. I'll head out tomorrow morning. Langston's jaw tightened. Okay. Neither of them said what they were really thinking. The next morning, Zahara zipped up her suitcase with shaking hands. The place felt different now. Quieter. Colder. She paused at the doorway, staring one last time at the apartment that had become, against all odds, something like home. Then came the knock. She opened the door, and there he was. Langston stood in the hallway, hands in his pockets, eyes filled with something she couldn't name. You're really leaving? He asked quietly. That was the plan. He stepped forward. What if I asked you to stay? Zahara's heart stopped. She started, but her voice cracked. This started as a lie, Langston said, but somewhere along the way, it became the most honest part of my life. She blinked fast. Langston, don't. I'm serious. Zahara looked at him. This man who had turned her world upside down, who had broken past every guard she thought she'd built, and her fear won. She smiled gently. Don't make this harder than it already is. He nodded, face unreadable. I understand. And just like that, he stepped back, and she walked away. The following days were a blur. Zahara returned to her apartment, back to her small couch, peeling linoleum, and overworked coffee maker. But nothing felt the same. Her place didn't feel like home anymore. Her old life, it felt like clothes that didn't fit. She tried to work, to write, to distract herself with tasks, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Langston. The way he looked at her when he said, "What if I asked you to stay?" That hadn't been performance. That had been real. And she had walked away. For days, she wrestled with the echo of his voice, the warmth of his hand on her back, the laughter they'd shared over late-night cereal, the comfort of silence between them. Then one afternoon, as she passed by a jewelry store window, something made her stop. There it was, the same delicate crescent moon necklace he had given her. sitting in a velvet case, its pendant catching the light. And just like that, Zahara knew. She had made a mistake. She didn't text, didn't call. She got in a cab, clutching the pendant around her neck like it was a compass. Her heart raced the entire ride to Langston's building. She didn't even bother smoothing her curls or checking her lipstick. When the elevator doors opened and she stood in front of his door, her hands trembled as she knocked. For a moment, nothing happened. Then it opened. Langston stood there in sweats and a t-shirt, looking like he hadn't slept well. His eyes widened. Zahara? She didn't say a word. She stepped forward, grabbed his shirt, and kissed him. But this time, there was no desperation. This kiss was soft, real, certain. When she finally pulled back, she whispered, "I want to stay." Langston stared at her, eyes searching hers like he wasn't sure she was real. Then slowly he smiled. "Took you long enough to figure that out." Zahara laughed through her tears. "You could have told me sooner. I was waiting for you to know it on your own." She folded her arms. "And what if I never came back?" "I would have come after you," he said softly. Zahara smiled. "Really?" "Absolutely. I never planned on falling for you, Zahara. But I did." Her heart swelled. "I'm glad you did." And this time, when they kissed again, there was nothing left to pretend. They didn't need a contract anymore. No cameras, no schedules. Just two people who stumbled into something real when they were both trying to fake it. Zahara continued writing. Except now she had better gigs, new energy, and a sense of purpose that felt rooted in truth. Langston. He finally stopped checking his calendar to avoid his own emotions. He started sleeping in a little later, laughing more, smiling with his whole face. Their life together wasn't perfect. She still left dishes in the sink and he still color-coded his socks. But it was real, and that was everything. 3 months later, Langston started acting weird again. He was sneaky with phone calls, distracted at dinner, and every time Zahara asked what he was up to, he'd flash that innocent, "I don't know what you're talking about" smile. So she followed him. Wearing oversized sunglasses and a hoodie, she trailed behind him across the city like she was in a low-budget spy movie. When he entered a jewelry store and started speaking to the clerk, she nearly fainted. "He's buying a ring." Zahara panicked and left before she could be spotted. Her mind was racing with questions and emotions, but also quietly with hope. That weekend, Langston invited her to dinner. A rooftop spot overlooking the Atlanta skyline, candles flickering in glass jars, and music playing softly in the background. Zahara narrowed her eyes. "Okay, what are you up to?" Langston didn't answer. He took her hand and walked her to the edge of the rooftop, where the city lights sparkled below them. "You changed everything, you know," he said. Zahara raised an eyebrow. "For better or worse," he chuckled. "Definitely better." Then he dropped to one knee. Zahara's heart nearly exploded. Langston pulled out a velvet box and opened it, revealing a ring that shimmered under the night sky. "Zahara Bell, I never expected you. You didn't come into my life quietly. You came crashing in with a kiss that flipped everything I thought I knew." She blinked back tears. "You taught me that love doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. So I have one question." He looked up. "Will you marry me?" Zahara wiped her face and smirked through her tears. "I don't know. Are you ready for a lifetime of my hair products on the bathroom counter?" "Already accepted it." "And my sock mountain on the couch? It's an art piece now." She laughed, then nodded. "Then yes." He stood, slipped the ring on her finger, and kissed her as the city twinkled beneath them. The wedding was magic, a garden ceremony filled with flowers, soul music, and laughter. Zahara wore a flowing ivory gown. Langston couldn't stop smiling. Their vows were raw and heartfelt. Langston said, "You kissed me once to save yourself, and now you're my saving grace." Zahara said, "You gave me everything I didn't know I needed, including a love I didn't believe was real. When they kissed at the altar, there were no contracts, just commitment. And when they danced under the stars that night, Zahara whispered, "Still think that kiss was a mistake?" Langston kissed her temple. "Best mistake I ever made."